What's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a narcissist? Well, it's called the narcissistic collapse. Let's talk about it. What is the narcissistic collapse? As I mentioned, it's the worst thing that could possibly happen to a narcissist. It often begins when the narcissist, as usual, goes through the cycle of love bombing, devalue, discard, and they discard their most current source of supply or one of them. And then suddenly they realize they can't replace that person. They no longer have the ability to obtain the type of supply that they once did. Of course, now the narcissist isn't getting the same kind of supply as they got before. And even when they try to hoover that most recent supply, it doesn't work. So what happens? The narcissistic supply becomes less and less available. They become different. They start to reach out to anyone, anything for supply. This launches all of their doubts and their fears about themselves and their lives. They go into sort of a poor me shock, and this leads to narcissistic rage, where it kind of just spews out on everyone around them. And before they know it, they might be completely alone. And then they go back into the poor me thing, and it's a rotation. Then their self-esteem goes down, their rage comes up, they go into poor me mode, and it's kind of an ugly cycle of a collapsed narcissist. This is the point at which the false self and the real self sort of come face to face. They sort of meet, and it ain't pretty. What's happening is the narcissist's facade has been taken away. The mask is off. The narcissist is outed. They are unable to continue to put the mask on. The mask doesn't work anymore. People can now see inside. They might literally start to hide. They might move out of town. They might become a completely different person, or they might just really dig their hooks into everyone who still is in their lives. It's what happens when all of the fake, calm, cool, collectedness is wiped away and the ugly, true face of the narcissist shows. I'm not talking about their physical face. Can a narcissist recover from a collapse? In some cases, they can. They might move to a different town, or they might join a new group of friends, or they might find a new love. They might get plastic surgery or any number of things to sort of artificially boost themselves back up. The problem is they don't usually dig deep and do the work necessary to actually become healthy and therefore not need to collapse again. Putting the mask on requires a certain amount of energy and a certain type of energy. And at the point at which a narcissist begins to collapse, it isn't really an option, the mask. So some people wonder, what is the difference between a narcissist who is discarding you and a narcissist who is collapsing? Well, these are two very different things. So you have the narcissist in discard who has pushed you away because they're done with you for now. They'd like to put you in a drawer and save you for later, but since you won't go, they'll shove you off and send you off on your own into the world and spinning and stressing. It doesn't matter. Now, when we're talking about a narcissist in collapse, they're not running away from you like they are with the discard. They're running toward you. They are trying to get your attention, trying to get your supply. This could be your parent, a grandparent. It could be your ex. It could be your spouse, a sister, a brother. It could be anybody. It doesn't just have to be someone you've been in a relationship with romantically. Now, some narcissists who collapse, they never come back up from it. They are elderly, or they have lost whatever it was that made them able to get supply. Now, others, they bounce right back and they keep doing it over and over and over again throughout their lives. You might say that a narcissist who's deeply depressed is collapsed, but that's not always the case. If the collapse is extreme enough, it is profound enough for the narcissist, they start to get a little bit reckless. In fact, in some cases, you'll see them actually self-sabotage. They might lose their job. They might spend all their money. They might run their credit card bills up to the roof and never pay them. They might lose their home. They might push all the people in the family away. They might do a number of things that would completely, on so many levels, destroy their lives. You'll see them using alcohol or drugs or other substances or habits, gambling, things like that. You'll see them losing friends if they ever had any. You'll see them losing support from every angle. You'll notice that they don't seem as smart or as physically healthy as they once were. You'll see that they stop doing things for themselves like they did before. If they always had their nails done, they don't do that anymore. If they always, had fabulous hair or whatever, they don't do that anymore. They start to look almost like a shadow of themselves or a caricature. They may still act grandiose, but nobody believes them anymore after this happens because they stop looking the part. They stop acting the part. It's almost like they're pretending, which they've always been. They've always been pretending. But in collapse, you see just the edges of humanity on a narcissist. You look close enough. Some narcissists will never actually see the truth until they reach collapse. And what I mean by this is some narcissists will not ever acknowledge that they have done anything ever wrong in their lives. They don't take responsibility for the pain they cause to other people. And in general, I think what it comes down to is that after they go through the collapse and they start to actually see through their unfiltered eyes, they start to recognize that no one around them actually likes them or even cares about them. People are just scared of them or feel obligated to them. And when this process begins to take hold, the narcissist can no longer pretend. And that is devastating. I mean, if you think about it, if you were that person and you realized all of a sudden that people had only been around you because they were afraid of you or because they were obligated to you, and they didn't actually care for you as a person and they kind of wished you would go away, that would be devastating, right? Well, then we understand how this might be because narcissists are so delusional in their regular selves, in their normal form. They lie to themselves just as much as they lie to us. So a lot of the times, the reason a narcissist collapses in the first place, as I mentioned, is because they can no longer uphold that false self, that false image. People stop believing them. And often it happens or can start to happen when the mask is sort of threatened and they feel like someone is seeing beyond them, right? So this is when you see these little mini breakdowns, like when the narcissist in your life might attack you for no reason, where they might bring home their stress from work and pour it all over you like emotional garbage. So when a narcissist is in collapse, it's usually because of their own dependence on narcissistic supply. They depend on the people around them for validation, for their own identity. And even though it might appear that the narcissist has a whole big personality, the truth is they very often don't have much of a personality at all without the people around them, without their sources of supply. The worst part is that most of them are actually quite insecure deep down. Not all of them, but most of them, especially when we're talking about those who could qualify as a covert narcissist or a vulnerable type of narcissist. You know, when you're looking at a collapsed narcissist, I mean, a lot of times you'll see them, like it's mentioned, the aging narcissist. I mean, there are situations where, like, you might see someone who kind of lost all their stuff. Someone would say that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, like they lose their looks or their
right.
money or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Whatever it is that they kind of used as a tool to get supply. So let's just, for example, a female narcissist, not always, but often uses her appearance. And then as she gets older, she might use her caregiving skills, or she might use some other form of obligation, some way to get people to do what she wants. And during her time as a very attractive person,
right,
she may be one type of narcissist. Maybe she seems happy all the time. Maybe she seems, whatever. But of course, the people behind closed doors always know. But then when she gets to collapsing, where her looks start to go and she notices people are noticing her daughter more than herself or whatever it is that triggers her, then she becomes poor me, usually. She's, I'm just a poor old lady, just, nobody cares about me. And she gets a lot of pity supply, right?
Mm-hmm.
In one iteration. Sometimes they go the other way, they're power hungry. But what have been have you experienced personally or through your clients any collapsed narcissists, Lisa?
Yeah, I've seen them go into, there's forms of denial. That didn't really happen. Everything's wonderful. And then playing the nice guy, playing the I just made a video last week about when they act good, when they act really nice, when they act like super. And a lot of times that comes after there's a collapse of something. Yeah. They can't fight it anymore. They can't fight whatever happened because the truth is just so obvious. And then that didn't actually happen that way. No. Or raging fits.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a 3-year-old temper tantrum of the worst kind. Right. And then in a big giant body.
Oh yeah. Gotta love that.
Yeah. Like literally throwing stuff, screaming, crying, and I've also
Right.
had one. What he did was when he was exposed by me, and
Mhm.
he was couldn't say anything because caught red-handed. Like,
Ooh.
yeah, caught red-handed. Couldn't deny it when I asked why'd you do this. I don't know.
Mm,
You know that, and
mm,
that was the whole gaslighting and all of that. But then afterward, went into this, didn't shower, didn't eat, did nothing but
mm,
drink alcohol. Like this is
mm.
the normal personality for this person. So,
For
or
sure.
the
Yeah.
normal behaviors rather. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So like total victim. Like, oh my gosh,
Mhm. Yes.
I'm
As,
worthless. Yeah.
mhm.
Mhm.
And did with this person with their this man,
Yeah.
did he come around as like did he try to make people feel obligated to him, or did he like through the pity thing, or was it some other?
Yes, he eventually made people feel sorry for him enough to then it built his ego enough, and then he wrote me saying how these people who used to hate him now love him.
Sounds about right. Sounds about right.
Yeah, they forgave him for the mistakes they made in judging his character before.
Yeah.
And they realized that he actually was the victim of the other circumstance and they missed yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Misty. Uh-huh.
Yes, yes. Okay. So let's think about what about do you think there's a way that you could like let's say a sign or is there some way that we could specifically identify in your head, not in your head, but in your mind, is there a way that you could look at a person and go, oh, that's a collapsed narcissist? I mean, without knowing them that well, or would you need to know them pretty well, do you think?
I think you'd have to know them well enough to know they're narcissistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And so like if somebody's like in a relationship or their parent is this
Right.
great, what would you say, like what could they look for? What would be some real red flag signs in your mind?
Usually you kind of have, well, you'll see it'll be like a repeating behavior. It's not like they collapse and stay there. Some of them do. And then they
Yeah.
lead a whole different kind of life where they're just the victim or they're just whatever, like you were saying, they've changed to the point where they can't put the pretty mask back on anymore. So
Right.
so they take on a whole new form. But seeing it comes and goes in waves in their life because they'll get collapsed from
Mm-hmm.
it's an ego hit. They get the
Yeah.
ego hit they can't deny. So you can look for things like absolute denial when they're gaslighting to the point where they are in such denial that didn't happen. That is
Mm-hmm.
not how it happened. And besides, it was their fault anyway, and I don't even know what you're talking about. And I never did that. But if I did, it would have been to them. And like that. And there's no reasoning behind it. I mean, it's like extreme versions of the stuff that we already see.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you think that there is a like when we're talking about the let's hold on. In your head, in your mind, what are the differences between a female and a male collapsed narcissist? Because typically, I mean, some men, of course, get by on their looks, but it seems like in our society, money is the thing that money or power
Power, control. Yeah.
Do you think? Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt.
Females, I mean, I guess it's usually the things they do for you, the giving, because a lot of female narcissists will give and give in ways and then use that as a tool to force you to give to them all the supply they want. So in other words, they do one nice thing. They bake a cake you didn't ask for. And then you have to thank them for 20 years for the cake that you never asked for.
That's right. That's quite neat because you're allergic to half the ingredients.
Right. So I see them using that as so then becoming extreme victims. How dare you? That
They
kind
do love drama.
the drama, the everyone turning on them, the victim, or telling you that you are greedy and selfish. I've heard of one that told her daughter to go work in a soup kitchen because she's selfish. In other words, turning her selfishness onto other people.
Projection,
like, total projection to an extreme.
Yeah.
Where sure, great idea, go help and volunteer and feed people, whatever, but said that way, not so nice, right? It was used Right. And then, so she's a victim. She's a victim of her daughter's selfishness that isn't actually there, right? Because she's exposed, because she was exposed in front of more than one person. And so it collapsed the ego. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you see a lot of times, I've noticed small-minded people, right? Like they become really blatantly like bigotry, like they pull out the bigotry, or they, you know what I mean? They become, well, we don't like people from this group or that group. And they, you know,
right.
And then we're supposed to go, well, they're old, so it's okay. But it's not okay.
Okay. No.
I know a lot of old people who are not like that. Okay.
And I'm females scramble for control. There's one.
That's what it is.
Yeah, they scramble for control, where if they can't control one thing, they'll go somewhere else and try and control from over here. And
yeah. And then of course they generally tend to, you know, as their children grow up and move out of the house, they try to continue to control them. They try to control the grandchildren as they arrive. They, like you mentioned, they might be addicted to stuff. They, you know, or they either start then or they increase, right? If that's their choice.
Right. If they're collapsed by you going low contact and it burst, and they know exactly why, but they're pretending they don't know why, then they might go after your children for supply.
Oh, yes.
And take control there. So they're staying in your house because now they're triangulating the kids in, but they're controlling the relationship with the kid.
Right. And then sometimes, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just want to say sometimes what I see is this is when, you know, it really all comes down to is the lack of easily available supply, right? So sometimes somebody will leave them, or somebody will, like you mentioned, or somebody might, like we talked about, they lose whatever it is that they have on people, right? They're controlled, their preferred tool of manipulation. And so you might see like someone wearing things that are too young for them, or, you know, someone hanging out with people who are their kids' ages all the time and not, you know, not having any people their own age.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
The extreme plastic surgery people, or not that there's anything wrong with plastic surgery. I mean, I've thought about Botox, you know what I mean? But I might do it sometime. Did you say you did it?
I said I do. No, I haven't done it. I do.
I haven't.
I do know the thought, but
I think about it sometimes, and I'm like,
look what's that?
It's all good. You look great. Don't worry. Anyway, but I think aging gracefully is great.
Whatever.
You know, whatever. You're not very much older than me. We're the same. So anyway, but I think everybody has their own thing, and I don't think it's narcissistic to necessarily go and do something with your face. I'm just saying what I see with collapsed narcissists specifically is that they will go overboard sometimes.
Oh yeah,
in uncomfortable ways with that stuff, or they wear things they shouldn't, or they, you know, whatever. They try to hold on to their youth instead of some of them, and then some of them go the other way with the program act or whatever.
I also think that the smear campaign is a form of collapsed narcissism behavior from a collapsed narcissist, because they are doing everything they can to point the blame, to victimize, to be the victim, to put you down, to make sure that the whole world thinks that something's wrong with you, because they're protecting an ego that is either right on the verge of collapse or has already collapsed in your eyes,
right?
Or whoever you've told, right? And so it's a scrambling self-protection mechanism and it's right either at the point or after the collapse. Especially if they are highly guilty of things.
Absolutely. Yeah, talk about that a little bit. The highly guilty part.
Well, I'd like, for example, a story of one person who married a financial swindler, really, and was extorting her. And she said no and bye. And so before anything could even, like, before she could even have him leave the house, every friend, every relative, every acquaintance, every work person knew that she was, in his opinion, a narcissistic bee with blah, 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 who was right about to kick him out of the house when he doesn't have a job, and poor him, and oh my God, what did he do? You know, like, into a complete collapse because she could have exposed him with one piece of paper.
Isn't that just
yeah? So you can.
And she probably didn't because
he was right on the verge of the collapse. He was in the collapse within his relationship. He was right on the verge of total exposure to a lot of people, and used the smear to protect.
All right, now this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, do you know a collapsed narcissist? Have you experienced a collapsed narcissist? And what was that like? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, and share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. And before I go, make sure you take a look at the videos I'm going to leave for you right there and right there. And while you're here, hit that subscribe button right over there so we can stay connected and continue on this healing journey together.